Xbox On. Welcome to Xbox On, a podcast with one host about one console, Xbox. I'm said host, Jesse DeRosa, and on today's episode, we're talking about the latest Xbox news for the week of May 16th, 2024, including Sarah Bond gives the first interview from an Xbox executive following last week's devastating news of 4 studio closures. Xbox confirms their mobile storefront will release very soon. Square Enix's future business model is changing and probably for the better if you're an Xbox gamer. All that and more. On this day in Xbox history, in the year 2016, 8 years ago, Doom was released for the Xbox One. Oh boy, I remember when this game was coming out, everyone was like, you're not hearing a whole lot about Doom. Ooh, that multiplayer beta was pretty bad. I don't know about this game. And then it came out and everyone's like, fuck, that game is so good. This is exactly what a modern interpretation of Doom should be like. And now, they're back on the map, man. They're so good that even Xbox won't shut them down, you know what I'm saying? It's like, what the hell, man? The rumor is we're about to get another Doom game. We'll get to that in a minute. But yeah, happy 8th birthday to Doom. That's kind of, I don't want to do the thing I do every week, but it is hard for me to believe this game is 8 years old today. I mean, all right, we're just going to move on. Guys, notable game releases of the week. There's nothing super big happening on the Xbox storefront or the Xbox platform, but I always like to point these out because I know there must be other people like me who primarily play on Xbox and then are interested in playing PlayStation games but don't have a PlayStation. So like when a PlayStation game comes to PC, it's almost like you're getting a new game in a way. So I always include them. But Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut comes to PC this week, so that's pretty notable. I mean, for people like me, I'll now get to play Ghost of Tsushima, although that's a bold-faced fucking lie because I have a PS4, so I could have played Ghost of Tsushima when it came out. It's a PS5 I don't have, so now, my logic's completely broken. I don't know why I even put this in here. I don't know, man. We got Xbox games coming to PlayStation left and right. Well, let's have Xbox gamers celebrate a couple PlayStation games over on PC, which is basically like a twice, not even twice removed. It's like a cousin. PC. If you're playing video games on the PC, you're a close cousin of the Xbox. We're all Windows based operating systems here. Okay, let's be friends about it. So, guys, welcome to Xbox On. It's hard to be, I don't know, it's hard to be a little like optimistic and positive about like, I'm so glad we get to sit around the table and talk this week because I am happy to be here and I do look forward to getting to do this podcast. It's my little outlet to be a fucking freak for 2.5 hours every week. And I look forward to your comments. I look forward to the interaction and seeing how you guys responded on Thursdays when the show goes out. But if I'm being completely honest, it's hard to be like really enthusiastic about it because the state of Xbox is just shit. it's just kind of been shit for a while, and it's so weird because it doesn't really have to be shit. It's like Microsoft, you have all the money in the world, you don't have to close down studios, and like if you're not like a talking head on the internet and you're actually a person who has like a full life outside of just your video game fandom, it's like Xbox has always been a platform with plenty of great games to play, and like it's like if the Xbox executives would shut their fucking mouths, and if the studio or if the company would stop buying studios and shutting down studios and coming out and saying stupid shit and pissing off the fans with all these little things here and there, it's like I'd be such a fucking happy camper on Xbox right now. I'm overwhelmed. I want to play Fallout 4, but I also want to finish Dead Island 2, but I still haven't even started Atlas Fallen, and I bought that game like 6 months ago, and then we got Hellblade coming out in just a week here. Like, I'm so happy over here on Xbox, but it's hard to just be happy on Xbox when every 25 minutes there's like Matt Booty or someone's like, don't you fucking enjoy yourself sitting there on your couch enjoying your $500 Xbox Series X in front of your LG TV about to fucking get online and play a match or two of Call of Duty because we got to piss you off first by letting you know Master Chief's coming to PlayStation. We just fucking fired everyone responsible for creating Gears of War, and oh yeah, Phil Spencer got a nipple ring, and We want to show you a little picture of that. Come check them out on Twitter. So it's like, I'm trying to do my thing over here, and you guys keep knocking on my door, tell me my dog's dead. Like, leave me alone. I don't know. It's a great time to be a fan of Xbox gaming. It's a terrible time to be like a fan or, you know, an observant, a participant in the news and like kind of the trappings and the behind the scenes of the industry, because the industry is just, it's a fucking dumpster fire right now. And I really feel for all the people in it or who were in it who are now pushed out or whatever the case may be, because it's not great. But all that really just to say, you guys, I'm happy to be here with you this week. But I wish we were under better circumstances. We will be talking a lot more about the events of last week because we have some new updates. Sarah Bond went to Bloomberg and did a video interview. And then we just have some other news as well. So there's plenty to talk about. I just wish, again, it were better circumstances. But with that all said, let's start out this week with our mildly amusing stories, beginning with an update where we got to talk about Hi-Fi Rush. So, yes, Tango Gameworks may be shut down, but from VGC's write-up, soon-to-be closed Xbox studio Tango Gameworks has confirmed that a physical edition of Hi-Fi Rush is still being worked on. Doubt had been risen about the physical game's release following the recent announcement that Microsoft's closing their only Japanese studio that they apparently wanted so badly and now are no longer in need of. But these have now seemingly been put to rest, these fears, because in an update on social media, Tango also said that they're planning to release a final update for the game that is actually live as of the time you're listening to this podcast. They said, thank you for all your continued support. We are working hard to get a physical edition of Hi-Fi Rush with our partners at Limited Run Games, as well as a final patch to address some minor issues releasing today. And that's what they said on Wednesday when they published it. And so as of the time you're listening to this, that final update's out, and the physical edition from Limited Run Games that was promised a few months ago is still coming. So don't worry about any of that. We just got to worry about the fact that Xbox's one and only Japanese team is being punished in the form of being shut down and put out of work as a result of creating the best Xbox IP, original IP in the past 5 years. And I mean, this is the reward you get for doing good work. So fuck you. But it's good to know that update's coming and that the physical edition, for those looking forward to it, is still on the way. Next up, I did just want to point out here, Tom Warren of The Verge, he's hinting that Xbox is probably about to talk about a new Doom game, because he wrote this whole like a little op-ed about like, what's next for Xbox? What's the future of Xbox? What's going on following all the news? And he kept hinting with the title and with his tweets about the story and everything. And in the story, I'm literally just going to pull this random sentence out of context where he says, Microsoft will be banking on talking about their upcoming showcase in June. Microsoft will be banking on some new announcements lifting the Doom around Xbox, and Doom is in all caps, just like the game's style is, stylized in all caps. So obviously he's hinting at, hey, there's a new Doom game that's going to be shown at this new Xbox showcase in June, so look forward to that. So while some Bethesda teams are getting shut down, told to make sure the door doesn't hit them on the way out, id gets to live to see another day, and they're working on another Doom game. This is actually somewhat of a notable surprise. I know as of relatively recently, the rumor has been that they're working on another Doom game, but for the longest time after Doom Eternal came out in 2020, the rumor was they're going to do to Quake what they did to Doom in 2016, and that had me super excited. I really, really wanted a kind of modern reinterpretation of what Quake could be, but still, I mean, I'll take another Doom game. Those first two are really excellent. I actually, embarrassed to admit, never finished Doom Eternal. I probably made it like 80% of the way through that game and never finished it, but I did beat Doom 2016, but nonetheless, I would take another Doom game. Those first two are great, and I mean, I know people would be really excited about this, and it's another great game to add to the Xbox portfolio, another great get for Game Pass. But honestly, at this point, you announce a new Doom game. By the time this thing comes out in 3 years, I don't even fucking know if Game Pass will be a thing. I don't know if Xbox hardware will be a thing. We'll probably be playing this thing on the goddamn Ouya 3, which will have come out of nowhere and just destroyed the Switch 2, the PS5, and whatever's left of Xbox. So that's something to look forward to, I guess. Be really curious to see when they announce this game if they're just unashamed about being like, yep, it's coming to Xbox and PlayStation and PC. And fuck, didn't they put Doom on Switch? Maybe they'll try to do some like streamable version of this on the Switch. Who knows? Because honestly, at this point, any sequel to Doom is coming to PlayStation, whether it's day one, whether it's 6 months later, I don't fucking know. But I'd be curious to see if they just are unashamed of being like, hey, this is a game that has history on PlayStation. We're putting the next one on PlayStation. Fuck you. There's just too much money to be made. Wouldn't be surprised. I mean, Sea of Thieves was revealed to be the #1 best-selling game in the month of April in Europe for PlayStation 5, and it was like number 4 in North America. So again, I mean, that's just a meteoric success for a game that's like 7 years old, to be coming to PlayStation and just selling like crack coming out the gate. You know, it's very minimal effort for Xbox financially to invest in getting that game moved over to PlayStation, and they are way more than, you know, reaping the rewards of putting that game over there. So it's pretty hard to imagine that the reaction from higher ups at Microsoft isn't going to be like, all right, Xbox, Phil Spencer, you guys, like, stop being cute. It's time to make some actual fucking money. So you guys are putting your new Doom game on PlayStation. I don't give a shit what your vision is or what your plan is. This is just going to happen. So that's why I say I'm just, you know, I wonder if they'll be unashamed about admitting, hey, this thing's coming to PlayStation. It'll be weird, but not too far from now, when we start regularly seeing Xbox showcase events where they're like world premiere, you know, and then at the end of the trailer, it's like Xbox, PlayStation, PC, Nintendo, Epic Games Store, whatever. I guess we're going to get away from, well, maybe we don't get away from the world premiere banner, but we are eventually going to get away from that console exclusive, because, I mean, maybe they'll just say Game Pass exclusive. I don't know. Or Day 1 Game Pass will be the only kind of exclusive bragging right thing that they'll have. But anyway, let's just move on. All right, in what is probably one of the only like really positive stories of the week, hey, that Assassin's Creed Feudal Japan game that people have been asking about since, I don't know, I hit puberty. It's finally happening. Now, we've known about this game for a little while. Ubisoft was very eager to let us know like a year or two ago, like, hey, we know you guys have wanted that Feudal Japan game for like over a decade. We're finally going to let you know that because we're running out of ideas, we're going to capitulate and make this game now so that you guys don't completely abandon us. And it was like Assassin's Creed Codename Red or whatever for the longest time. But this week, they showed their first cinematic trailer for the game, as well as announced the proper title and the release date and all the details. So unfortunately, we didn't get any gameplay, which I assume we'll probably get sometime this summer at that Ubisoft Forward event. But in the meantime, we got a 4-minute cinematic trailer. We got a synopsis of what the game's about, some details about it, release date and name, and all that good stuff. So let's get into it. Ubisoft unveiled Assassin's Creed Shadows this past week via cinematic trailer. Set for release on November 15th, 2024, Assassin's Creed Shadows takes place in 16th century Japan. Well, so I guess this is a little later. This is really kind of post-feudal Japan. If it's 16th century, this is a couple hundred years later. But anyway, doesn't matter. It's that Japanese samurai Assassin's Creed game people have been looking for. The little synopsis says, quote, "The country is headed towards a brutal path to unification, where unrest grows as new coalitions appear in corruption and corruptive foreign influences infiltrate the land. Players will experience an intertwined story of Naoi, an adept shinobi assassin from the Iga province, and Yasuki, the powerful samurai of historical legend. Discover the personal stories, meet pivotal historical figures, and shape the duo's common destiny as they usher in the new era of Japan. Assassin's Creed Shadows will be released on Xbox Series X and PC through the Ubisoft Store and Epic Games Store on PC. Assassin's Creed Shadow, which is being made by Assassin's Creed Odyssey developer Ubisoft Quebec, has the same creative director and will begin what Ubisoft is referring to as Period 3 for the franchise, which has sold over 200 million copies since its launch in 2007, according to company Ubisoft. Now, this is interesting because, obviously, when they say Period 3, what they're kind of implying is that Period 1 is that Assassin's Creed 1 up until Assassin's Creed, what is it, Odyssey or whatever. It was Odyssey, then it was whatever the other one was, then it was the Viking one, you know. So basically what they're saying is like your classic Assassin's Creed games, and then those big open world, more single player RPG style Assassin's Creed games like Odyssey, not Ragnarok, but Valhalla. And now they're saying that this game will launch Period 3 of the franchise, which might just be some marketing buzz term that they came up with, but it makes you wonder, like, what could they be thinking in terms of how to, like, spin, like, what's a new twist or spin on the franchise they could do to make this game a new era, a new period. They're not, they already opened up the franchise and made it open world. They already made it more RPG based and all that with these more recent entries. So what is this going to do to evolve the formula of Assassin's Creed? Now, we do know everything Assassin's Creed goes into this, like, Assassin's Creed Infinite or Infinity, like platform, like service platform. So I assume that's what they're talking about, is that this is kind of the game that kicks off the Assassin's Creed Infinity live service platform, and that's why they refer to this as like the next era of Assassin's Creed. But if that's really all they're referring to, then... But if they're just like, hey, we have some really cool mechanics and ideas that are going to evolve the series in a way that you've never experienced before, then like, hey, that's cool. Let's see what that's about. You guys know me if you've been listening to this podcast for a while. I'm not an Assassin's Creed guy. There have been a couple of Assassin's Creed games that have definitely piqued my interest, but it just never happened. You know, I love pirates, so the idea of a Assassin's Creed 4 with the pirates was cool. I think the Civil War setting was pretty badass for Assassin's Creed 3, but again, I just never played it, so I never gave Assassin's Creed a chance, and aside from those two entries, pretty much nothing in the series has ever really spoken to me or maybe want to give the game a go. But I will say, much like Assassin's Creed 3, much like Black Flag, I would say Assassin's Creed Shadows, at least in theory, at least in its setting and synopsis, is probably the most interested, one of the more interesting Assassin's Creed games. One of the ones that has my interest peaked the most. Although I will say, if they made this Japanese Assassin's Creed game like 10, 12 years ago, like people were asking for and assuming would happen, I feel like I would have been a lot more open-minded to giving it a try than how I feel now, where it's like, oh wow, they're doing an Assassin's Creed game set in Japan in the 16th century. That's cool, but here's a list of every fucking open world parry mechanics Souls type experience that looks like ancient East Asia, whatever, fucking Lies of P, which is definitely not Asia, all the way to Wolong, Fallen Dynasty, and Sekiro, and Elden Gods, and Ring Bearers, and all. So it's like, on the one hand, it's like the SpongeBob meme. This is what we were waiting for. But on the other hand, it's like a little too little, like too little too late kind of deal. So Assassin's Creed Shadows, if you are 47 years old and you were with me in 2008 and we were in middle school or high school or whatever, and we were like, they should do a Japanese Assassin's Creed game, then boy, oh boy, I'm so excited for young you, because your dream has finally come true. No, they didn't cure cancer, although they could if they wanted to. No, they didn't end homelessness and poverty and child hunger and fix the water in inner cities or anything like that. But they did finally put a goddamn Assassin's Creed game in a Japanese setting. And so, hey, the future's not that fucking dark after all, huh? So yeah, that's Assassin's Creed Shadows. Like I said, Ubisoft Forward this summer. We'll probably see a lot more of this game and get some serious gameplay. But hey, the trailer was a little long in the tooth, a little boring, but tonally pretty cool. You got the two characters. It'll be interesting to see how they kind of handle that with their different stories. Who knows? Maybe it's like a branching paths kind of narrative game. You get the full story by beating it twice and playing as both characters. They could try to go that route. Who knows? We'll all find out soon enough, but I know there's a lot of Assassin's Creed fans out there who will be pretty excited with this game. Or maybe not, because gamers are also cynical as fucking hell, and maybe they'll see some kind of pre-order thing they're doing, or some kind of limited access thing, or some kind of like in-app thing that ruins the whole fucking game, and there'll be some big blowout about Assassin's Creed sucks, Assassin's Creed Shadows has a pay-to-win mechanic that you only get if you get the $120 edition of the game, or who knows? That stuff's pretty commonplace these days. So, all right, a little bit of perspective. I am seeing. I put this in here really not to rain on Xbox's parade or make things look worse than they already seem, but I put this in here because on Twitter lately, I've been seeing a lot of these kinds of like Xbox self-appointed pundits and stuff, kind of doing the whole like, hey, Sony just, for context, Sony just had their fiscal earnings call late last week or early this week or whatever, and they talked about PlayStation hardware, and much to everyone's speculation, it was confirmed that PlayStation hardware is a little bit under where expectations were, although Sony had pretty lofty expectations for PlayStation sales, and hardware sales were down year over year because the industry is in a little bit of a slump right now, and that just is true. But I'm seeing a lot of people being like, see, don't worry about Xbox hardware being down over 30% year to date or year over year, and don't worry about the fact that Xbox would have actually fucking lost money if it weren't for Activision basically, bolstering their numbers. And don't be worried about Xbox closing down studios left and right. PlayStation closed down a couple studios recently, not too long ago, and their sales aren't where they hoped that they'd be. So I'm seeing a lot of this narrative trying to like do a 1-to-1 comparison of like what PlayStation's going through financially right now is very similar to what Xbox is going through right now. It's an industry-wide thing. Everyone's having layoffs. This is very normal. This is just very of the time right now, and that there's nothing to be particularly concerned with as pertains to Xbox, because this is just kind of an industry-wide phenomenon that's being experienced right now. And I just want to put this next little small story in here to just be like, that's not fucking true. And what's going on with Xbox is incredibly alarming and concerning. So just real quick, Sony shipped almost 5 times as many PlayStation 5 consoles as Microsoft did Xbox Series consoles during the first calendar quarter of 2024. That's according to an estimate, of course, not solid numbers, but a very well-educated number from sales tracker Nico Partners, as shared on Twitter by Daniel Ahmad, the company's director of research and insight. Sony reported this week that they'd shipped 4.5 million PlayStation 5 units during the 3 months ending in March, taking a lifetime total of the console to 59.3 million. So they're just shy of 60 million units. They're probably already there. While Microsoft doesn't report Xbox hardware numbers, it confirmed a significant drop in hardware revenue in an earnings report for the first quarter of the year, with many speculating that in the first quarter for Xbox that they sold roughly 800,000 Xbox Series consoles, so just shy of 1 million units, which is well less than a fourth of what PlayStation did in the same time. So it's just important to note that, it's a down quarter. Yes, there's not a whole lot happening in terms of games being released right now. Yes, inflation's out of control. Unemployment's starting to go up a little bit. There's a lot of uncertainty in the games industry. Sony hasn't put out a first-party game since Spider-Man last fall. There's a lot of that kind of stuff. So, there's a lot of easy things to point to show, okay, numbers are down a little bit. But make no mistake, PlayStation 5 is already at 60 million units sold lifetime, which is, it's on track to probably match or surpass PS3's lifetime sales this year. And Xbox is probably hovering in the mid 20 million range right now, which is abysmal. It's on track to underperform relative to the Xbox One generation, which severely underperformed relative to the Xbox 360 generation. So this isn't some apples to apples comparison or hey, everyone's hurting right now. This is still very much no, everything is blowing up in Xbox's face, and they cannot get this ship course corrected, and it's not a good time. Xbox hardware is definitely on its last leg. I'm sure we'll get this next generation of hardware that they are promising, that Sarah Bond keeps bragging about, the fucking 75 teraflops, and we're about to do things with an Xbox that you've never seen with a console before. I don't give a shit. Fuck off. I don't care about any of that. We're clearly at the end of not the very end of the road, but we're starting to see a dead end up ahead on the Xbox hardware train. And with PlayStation, there's no clear end in sight. There's good indication that there will be an end, because as we can all kind of assume and make an educated guess, the future is going to be PC gaming, mobile gaming, streaming on different devices, PCs, tablets, phones, TVs, whatever the case may be. So while it's safe to assume that eventually all PlayStation, Xbox related shit will be some streaming subscription service and not a home console that you buy for $500, it's just abundantly clear that Xbox is going to reach that destination, that final destination, a lot sooner than PlayStation will. And this weird narrative, this weird let me bend over backwards, I have to defend Xbox because my whole entire social credibility is dependent upon it. It's all right, listen, man, I like Xbox hardware just as much as the next fucking Phil Spencer tryhard out there, but I being honest, man, it's looking grim, okay? The games for this platform are over here selling like crack on PlayStation. No one's buying these fucking consoles, even though one of them's $300 and one of them's the most powerful box in the world. No one gives a shit that the controller's better. No one gives a shit that Game Pass gives you so much value for only $17 a month. I don't know what to say. Nothing's working. And now the whole problem is being exacerbated because Satya Nadella and the higher-ups at Microsoft are sticking their dick in the pot and stirring the fucking soup and contaminating it with their weird cock juices or whatever the fuck they're doing. So whatever Phil and the team's vision was for Xbox, whatever they hope to achieve in the next year or so with all these teams they have now firing on all cylinders, it doesn't fucking matter. The Xbox ship is sinking. So again, I know it sounds so dire. I know there are people who are going to turn off this episode and be like, oh, this guy's not an Xbox fan. He's a hater. Oh, this guy's so negative. Why are you so negative? Listen, man, I don't fucking make the news. I didn't operate Xbox for the past 10 years and run into the fucking ground. I don't own Microsoft. I'm not Satya Nadella. I don't have any control over whether or not we get to let Phil Spencer continue to try his vision for another year or two and see if he can make it work before we step in. I don't have control over any of this. I'm just some stupid schmuck who gets to do the news commentary on his podcast once a week. And the fact of the matter is, we got to look at the evidence and the data and the trends in front of us and go, well, what does it fucking mean? And it's clear as day. Xbox, as we know it, is going away. Xbox altogether going away? I don't think so. Not anytime soon, at the very least. Or, I don't think it's going to be like Windows Phone, where it's just like one day they're going to confirm a hard end date for Xbox, and then they're just going to stop selling Xboxes, stop making games for Xbox, all that shit. No, I don't think any of that's happening. I think Xbox will live on as a publisher. It will go, probably, most likely, Xbox is going to go the way of Sega and just become a giant fucking publisher with 98% of their relevancy just being annualized Call of Duty games because they've become Activision. Or, best case scenario, Game Pass gets to live on and Xbox becomes some fucking platform where you get to have your digital ecosystem and you get to interact on Samsung TVs and Android phones and shit like that, and you get to access your library of Xbox content you've always accumulated via all these various streaming devices and stuff like that. But one way or another, that's where Xbox is headed. It's very clear, and I just want to be upfront about that, because even though like we can still enjoy the kind of more classic style of the video game industry with the Xbox console versus the PlayStation console, we can still enjoy that for another handful of years. I'm not saying that tomorrow you're going to wake up and your Xbox is going to poof and disappear, but I also don't want to lie about it and be like, oh, they'll dig themselves out of this hole. It's like, no, they fucking won't, man. No, they won't. They had an amazing thing going with the 360. Don Matrick and the team fucked it up at the beginning of the Xbox One generation. And then a few years later, they install Phil Spencer, and it's like, this guy's going to turn the ship around. And for a long while there, it was like, he really is. And he did a great job changing the image of the company and really winning back their core base again and doing a lot of great for Xbox. But the fact of the matter is, they've had to make some crazy moves the past few years, some big gambles with things like Game Pass, some big gambles with giant acquisitions like Bethesda, and they definitely fucked themselves over and bit off way more than they can chew by trying to take on Activision and in doing so getting the attention of the bigger people at Microsoft and getting their hands involved in the pie and all of these things. And now it's just it's at a place where it can't be stopped, and even when Xbox was kind of almost back or in a place where it seemed like things were all right, at the beginning of the Xbox Series generation, the console sales weren't there, the game sales weren't there, nobody's buying games on Xbox, everyone's just leaning on Game Pass isn't growing, console sales are declining, there's no money being made. That's the problem. At the end of the day, Xbox needs you to buy games on the Xbox storefront. Xbox needs you to support the third parties on the Xbox storefront. They need you to buy console hardware. They need you to subscribe to services. And there's no money in any of it because no one's buying hardware. And not enough people are subscribed to Game Pass to make it profitable. And no one's buying any fucking games on their platform altogether. And the only reason this thing hasn't been stopped altogether as of like a year ago is because they're Microsoft and they can afford to hemorrhage money. And thankfully, Call of Duty is going to float them with whatever direction they decide to pivot or however they decide to reorganize. They'll be fine because they got fucking Call of Duty money to protect them. But man, oh man, the Halo 3 2007 Xbox 360 I fucked your mom days, that's over, man. It's just fucking gone. I don't know. I'm not trying to. It's like, Jesse, we haven't even gotten to the news. Why are you already ranting and pontificating so much about Xbox's doom and gloom? It's like, I'll be honest with you, man. I've been thinking about it lately. Like, just like when I stop and I think about like, what's the news right now in Xbox? What am I going to talk about on the show? How do I feel about this? What are my opinions? A frequent thing that keeps coming up in my head, like an intrusive thought, but I can't help but think about it. I feel like in the next couple of years, I'm going to be at a crossroad where it's like, all right, man, what are we doing? Are we gonna become the person you swore you'd never be and go all in on PC? Or are you going to bite the fucking bullet and buy a PlayStation 5? And I feel like we're quickly approaching this impasse where I'm thinking about it. I'm like, I guess when all is said and done and everything explodes in a fucking ball of fire, because I want to play console video games. I don't want to stream everything. That's a nice supplemental thing to have, but that's not the entirety of how I want to interact with games. So I'm wondering, how long do I have before I'm at a point where it's like, all right, time to buy a PlayStation 5. I got to buy a PlayStation 5. Because I want to sit down on the couch and hold a physical controller and be connected to a physical console machine that's connected to my TV and play games natively off my home console. I want to do that. And I don't know. It's like this is 2016, 2017 all over again, where it's like, all right, man, this Windows phone is fucking dying. I know I only have about like 8 months to a year and a half before it's like time to fucking jump. What's it going to be? Android or iPhone? Which one am I going to do? Am I getting the Samsung Galaxy or the iPhone 7 XR? Like, what am I going to do? Because my fucking Nokia is dying. Xbox doesn't care about me. Snapchat never put a fucking app on the Windows Phone ecosystem, so I'm fucked here. What am I going to do? And I feel like, as someone who has been through this before with Microsoft and with their hardware, I feel like I'm kind of in that situation again. Because even if Xbox lives on, and I think it will, it's like, I don't want to just give Xbox, because Game Pass prices are going up soon. Like, fucking believe me, this is happening. I don't want to pay $20, $22, $23 a month just so I can fucking stream Call of Duty to my Samsung TV. Like, that doesn't sound appealing to me. I don't want that shit. And again, I know I got a few more years with the Xbox Series X and S. And then after that, we probably got a couple years with the Xbox Generation Finale Y Edition or whatever the fuck they call it. They should just call it Xbox Final Destination, by the way, because it's just it's the end of the road. Something like that. But like, I'll enjoy Xbox for the next 2 years where I can do all those things. But I know there's only so much time left before it's like, all right, here, we're on the Wii U. It's over, whatever it is. So I don't know. Just disappointing stuff, man. It really sucks. I started this podcast because clearly I like Xbox, but I don't know. They fucked it up, man. They got too greedy. They didn't need to do. I remember like fucking fuming. I remember when they said they were going to buy Activision, when that day when that bombshell announcement came out. I remember like walking outside the road where my apartment was at the time, and like walking up and down the road one night, just like thinking. And I was like, pull out my voice recorder app to like take down notes of like things I wanted to say during the podcast, and kind of like just my interpretation of like why consolidation's bad and why we don't want an Xbox that absorbs Activision, and why this isn't what's best for the brand. This isn't what's best for gamers. This isn't what's best for developers. I remember all these things, and then over time being beaten down and worn down and being like, all right, people really just fucking want Microsoft to own Activision and put Call of Duty on Game Pass. So I guess I'll just shut the fuck up and let the people be happy. And here we are, 6 months into a world where Microsoft owns Activision, and it fucking sucks. It sucks just as much as I said it would. Everything sucks. And we're not getting Hexen, and we're not getting fucking the X-Men Origins Wolverine, the sequel for the video game from Raven. We're not getting any of this shit. Activision's not bringing back Prototype. We're not getting Prototype 3. We're just getting Call of Duty, a fucking game we would have gotten anyway if Activision remained independent. The difference is, now it's owned by Xbox, and every fucking Xbox studio, every owned Xbox team, along with Bethesda, is now the meme of the mom holding up her fucking golden child in the pool, who's Activision and Call of Duty, and all her fucking kids, Obsidian, Double Fine, Tango Gameworks, everyone, they're the fucking kids drowning in the pool and the skeleton at the bottom of the ocean, all that shit. It's that meme. And it's just so silly, because it's like, you can say the same thing about Bethesda too, and I would argue it as well. We would have gotten Starfield with or without Xbox's involvement. We would have gotten Call of Duty 75, Call of Duty 76, Call of Duty 69. We would have gotten all these games with or without Xbox. But now we don't get more Tango Gameworks because Xbox had to have Call of Duty. Now we don't get to see Arcane Austin redeem themselves and become a reinvented company again, or a reinvented developer again, because Call of Duty. Because as Matt Booty says, our resources are spread too thin. We need to focus on the business model at hand, the big games, the tentpole franchises, all that shit. And I'm sorry, Hi-Fi Rush, but you're not it. I'm sorry, Pentiment, but you're not it. And we know that we got Xbox Game Studios layoffs coming up imminently, which is just so exciting. And so, I don't know, here's some guessing, Ninja Theory, Compulsion, Undead Labs. I'm sorry, guys. honestly, prediction time, I wouldn't be surprised if Undead Labs gets shut down and State of Decay 3 gets canceled. Because from what I understand, that game's a piece of shit as far as its development. Like, its process has been hell on earth. You know, that was the word. They announced it way too soon. They've rebooted the game internally multiple times. The founder of the team left. Maybe that game just gets fucking canceled and the team gets shut down. Ninja Theory's about to put out a game that no one's fucking talking about. Maybe that game gets shut down. I don't know. So it's just... lots of thoughts, man. Bad time over here on Xbox. It's just not... It's not the best. So, speaking of the glory days of Xbox, let's round out this week's opening news with just a little quick one about the Xbox 360. So, as we already know, on July 29th, the Xbox 360 storefront is going to be shut down for good, the Xbox 360 marketplace. So you won't be able to buy digital games or DLC or anything from the Xbox 360 storefront after July 29th. So Microsoft's already announced a series of sales they're going to do to try and give people this opportunity to go download this game and that game, this Xbox Live Arcade, that DLC before it's all gone, so people can kind of stack up and get the things they want to get. I need to get on there. There's a couple things I need to buy before that happens. Because, of course, if you buy it, you'll have access to re-download it. But if you don't buy it, you'll never be able to buy it. And then it'll just be lost to time and space. So they have announced... So Microsoft just wanted to say that, hey, the first 66 titles that of this giant sale have already had price reductions. And they've been announced. And there's 220 games in total that they're going to try to... that they're pointing out, like, hey, these games will go away once the storefront shuts down. So... just want to put it out there so people know, like, hey, let me go out and make sure I buy this game, or I look into what games I would like to maybe download or get the DLC for before they go away forever. Just because I hate for people to feel caught off guard and miss their opportunity. So just want to put that out there. Xbox 360, you're the GOAT. Mountain Dew Voltage, Halo 3, Xbox 360. Even the Red Ring of Death couldn't stop us, baby. We were on fire. And I forgot this one other. I guess we're just kind of dancing between Xbox news, Ubisoft news, Xbox, Ubisoft. One more here. Ubisoft has canceled The Division Heartland. The company confirmed that the development of the project has ceased during its quarterly earnings call this week. They said, quote, in line with the increased selectivity of our investments, we have decided to stop developing the Division Heartlands and are redeploying our resources to bigger opportunities like X-Defiant and Rainbow Six Siege. Heartland was set to be a free-to-play multiplayer survival action shooter set in the fictional rural community of Middle America. They called the game a difficult cancellation of the game a difficult but necessary and important decision to make. Developed by Red Storm Entertainment, Heartland was planned as a free-to-play multiplayer shooter for PC and console. Red Storm Entertainment is known mostly for their support work on various Far Cry games, as well as support work on the upcoming X-Defiant. The PvEVP-focused survival action title was set to be in the fictional rural American Midwest town of Silver Creek, which had been left in ruins following the spread of the dollar flu. During the earnings call this week, Ubisoft CEO Yves Guillemot said that Heartland didn't align with the company's plans to sharpen its strategic focus on two verticals. The first vertical being open-world adventure games, and the second vertical being native games as a service titles. I don't understand how this game doesn't fall under one of, if not both of those categories, but unfortunately the game has been canceled. That's probably has more to do with budget and team being stretched thin and layoffs and all these things. So no commentary. Guys, that's going to do it for all of our opening news segments. We are going to get into this Sarah Bond interview with Bloomberg because that's she clearly drew the short stick here with this one, having to be the first executive to come out and talk. Although, honestly, what would have been best is if none of these guys fucking came out of the woodworks to talk. They should have just kept their fucking mouths shut. But, of course, they couldn't do that because they're Xbox and they just have to always make it worse. So we're going to get into that in a second. But first, we're going to add some levity by going through our general what I've been playing and all of that. But before I can tell you about what I've been playing this week, I got to tell you about what I've been eating. Well, it's been a little bit of a weird weekend because I actually wasn't home. I was out of town all weekend. Went on a little bit of a Royal Caribbean cruise. So I didn't really have time to play any video games or really do anything notable like that. It was really just chill time. One of the benefits of living in Central Florida is you're so close to cruise ports in any direction, so you can easily hop on a weekend cruise, and it's way more financially and logistically doable as a local here than it is living basically anywhere else. So we were fortunate enough to be able to hop on a Royal Caribbean cruise this past weekend, and so I didn't play any fucking video games. I had no internet. I was in the middle of the Caribbean fucking floating around, bouncing around Nassau and Miami and all that shit, sipping on Coco Locos and fucking eating buffet food 7 meals a day. So what have I been eating? I feel like a fucking glut. That's I've been eating tons of shit, tons of things I shouldn't be eating. And now that I'm back, I've immediately put myself on a diet. Today I had oats and vegetables. So I don't want to talk about what I've been eating. I'm ashamed of myself. I'm a fat fucking lard over here. But as for what I've been playing, while I don't have anything specific that I've been playing, because again, I haven't been home, and I've been without internet and access to video games, I did want to just shout out this game. I found out about this listening to Sacred Symbols, my boyfriend's podcast, as my girlfriend would refer to him as. I did not know about this game at all, but then someone on the podcast was talking about how they were playing this game, and I was like, what the fuck is that? I looked it up. Lo and behold, Sker, S-K-E-R, Sker Ritual. This is basically just a fucking Call of Duty Zombies game. This is basically like, what if Black Ops 3, but now? So, this is a new round-based Call of Duty-inspired zombies shooter game, co-op up to 4 players. It basically works just like Call of Duty Zombies. If you're familiar with like old Black Ops zombies, then you've definitely seen a game like you've definitely seen this game. Like it's awesome. But it's made by Wales-based developer Wales Interactive. Fitting name for a team based in Wales. And yeah, they've been around for a little over a decade. They're a team not known for much outside of a couple visual novels, some smaller games, some iPhone games, and in recent history, just a bunch of these like survival horror indie style games they make. And they released a game 3-4 years ago called, first one was called Made of Skur, and that came out like 3 or 4 years ago. But yeah, this is, I guess, set in the same universe, but it's like a different game, because that first one's like a indie first-person survival horror game, and this one is Black Ops 3 zombies with a different look to it, basically. And as soon as I found out about this game, I was like, downloading that demo immediately. I'm playing this game, I'm downloading that demo. I can't wait to play this game tomorrow and see what all the fuss is about, because you know me, if you used to follow when I was streaming back in the day on Twitch, I mean, there's nothing I enjoy more than some Call of Duty Zombies. So I'm very excited to play this game. And, you know, with Modern Warfare 3 zombies being such ass, and with Modern Warfare 2 not having zombies, and Vanguard having such shit zombies, I mean, it's been a few years since we've had some decent Call of Duty Zombies to play. And while that's fine, I can patiently wait for the next entry in a Black Ops series. I mean, holy fuck, if there's an opportunity to play some new high-quality Call of Duty Zombies type gameplay, I want to get on that shit ASAP. So while we wait for Black Ops Gulf War, or Black Ops 6, or whatever the fuck it's called later this year, I'm going to jump into this Skur Ritual this weekend and report back to you guys next week and let you know how it is, because I'm very intrigued by this game. I'm very much looking forward to playing it. So that's it for what I plan on playing, have been playing, eating, whatever, kind of jumbling up. Let's take a quick break, and then we'll just jump into Sarah Bond news, talk about the main news segments, or news stories of the week, and just figure out what the hell's going on with Xbox. So let's just jump into this Sarah Bond Bloomberg situation here. So I'm not sure how this happened, who at Microsoft decided this needed to happen, but Sarah Bond sat down with Bloomberg this week to discuss studio closures, the future of Xbox, the state of the games industry, etc., etc. We got a couple interesting tidbits. Of course, I'm going to use VGC as always to kind of sum up and transcribe some discussions that were had during the talk. But if you want to go experience it for yourself, it is a 16-minute video, 17-minute video on YouTube. If you look up Bloomberg Live, their YouTube channel, they have it. The video is titled Xbox President Bond on Gamers' Future. And it's worth listening to. But so we got the shorthand version here from VGC. And let's just jump into it. So they write up, Xbox President Sarah Bond has spoken more about the company's decision to close 4 Bethesda studios, which was made last week. It was revealed last Tuesday that Xbox was shutting down 4 teams: Redfall developer Arcane Austin, Hi-Fi Rush developer Tango Gameworks, Mighty Doom developer Alpha Dog, and support studio Roundhouse Games. In an interview with Bloomberg Tech Conference in San Francisco on Thursday, Bond was asked by Bloomberg's Dinah Bass how players should be expected to understand these closures. Bond replied that the closures were the outcome of a long-term commitment to ensure the health of the business. So keep in mind, this is right after that internal town hall thing that Matt Booty had that came out and that we heard about, where they said that a lot of the closures and stuff was about getting personnel under control and then trying to figure out, be able to make smaller games and do all these kinds of things, which is so ironic and hilarious. But then you would think the best thing really for Xbox to do with all these things coming out, these emails being sent out, and then of course the public learning about these closures, the best thing to do would just be to lay low and not say a goddamn thing. No, Xbox and Microsoft decided we're going to talk as we always do. And so Sarah Bond says the following in response to all these questions and goes, "It's always extraordinarily hard when you have to make decisions that, like Bond said before, referring to an earlier comment she made about the industry being flat. Last year, despite a slew of high-quality game releases," she goes, "I'll go back to what I was saying about the industry. And when I look at those fundamental trends, we feel a deep responsibility to ensure that the games we make, the devices we build, the services that we offer are there through moments, even when the industry isn't growing and you're through a time of transition. And the news we announced earlier this week and the outcome of that and our commitment to make sure that the business is healthy for the long term." Bass pointed out to Sarah Bond that one of the reasons players and staff were most upset about the closure of Tango Gameworks in particular was that they felt that the studio responsible for something as critically acclaimed as Hi-Fi Rush should have been considered more secure. Bond reiterated that a number of criteria go into the closure of a studio, with the ultimate aim being to ensure that long-term health of Xbox. She goes, quote, "One of the things that I really love about the games industry is the creative art form," Bond said, "and it means that the situation and what success is for each game and the studio is really unique. There's no one-size-fits-all to it for us. And so we look at each studio and we look at each game and we look at the whole variety of factors that we face in making decisions and trade-offs like that. But it all comes down to our long-term commitment to the games we create, the devices we build, the services, the ensuring that we're setting ourselves up to be able to deliver on these promises." So let me stop there. So that's the end of the quote. Let me stop and go back to the question real quick again. So this Dinah Bass lady says that one of the reasons why people and staff are confused and upset is because Tango Gameworks recently released this Hi-Fi Rush game. It's critically acclaimed. People love it. It's kind of the thing that normally happens that makes people go, oh, well, this studio is secure because now they have this big hit on their hands and everyone loves them. They're kind of in a golden moment. So what do you say to people reacting poorly to that news considering that factor? This is the question that is asked to Sarah Bond. And Sarah Bond responds and says, "One of the things I really love about the games industry is its creative art form. That means that the situation for what success is for each game is really unique. There's no one-size-fits-all." So that kind of vaguely somewhat addresses something of what she's saying in the sense that she's saying, how can the question is, how can a studio put out a highly acclaimed brand new IP that people are so into, like Hi-Fi Rush, and then get shut down almost immediately after? And she's saying, well, one thing I love about the games industry is that success isn't measured in a one-size-fits-all kind of way. Just because you really, I guess that could be extrapolated to mean just because you release a game that gets great critical reception and makes like hardcore fans happy doesn't necessarily mean the team has succeeded at something, or doesn't necessarily mean that we are in a position where that team is super secure and everything's like Gucci. And I guess that's what she's kind of saying, is that it wasn't good enough. In her effort to say nothing and to be so PR trained and to be so buttoned up and to be so to deviate so much from the actual question, what she really does is basically says good enough wasn't good enough, or I guess. But she says we look at each studio, each team, each game, the variety of factors that we're facing when we make decisions and trade-offs like that. It comes down to our long-term commitment to the games we create, the devices we build, and the services that we offer, ensuring that we're setting ourselves up to be able to deliver on those promises. People are mad that you shut down Tango Gameworks, your only Japanese team, even though you guys bitched and moaned forever that you need more support from Japan. And they just released a huge game that everyone loved last year, and it won tons of awards and got tons of praise and was a great hit, and you shut them down. What do you say to people who work for Xbox and for fans about this decision? And she says, we look at the teams and the games, and we think about the hardware and the games and the services we offer, and we think about our ability to deliver on the promises of being there long term through good times and bad times. So I guess in a way, she's really saying nothing. But if you really have to make a point out of this and make it make sense in some way, she's reiterating what Matt Booty says in that town hall, which is that, hey guys, we need more resources in terms of upper management, like we need to be more focused on the games that make more money. It's really quite clear what they're saying is. Let me just stop what I'm saying because I'll just be more direct. I don't know how this is read between Matt Booty's comments internally in their little town hall and now Sarah Bond's comments to Bloomberg. I don't know how you see this as anything other than saying, listen, Hi-Fi Rush was a great hit in the sense that Xbox never has critical darlings, and this was a critical darling for Xbox. It was great for the PR. It was great for the in the know kind of hardcore gamers to be in the good graces and have a new game that people were like, wow, that's cool, that's fresh, that's original, that's coming from Xbox. Wow, they don't have that on PlayStation. Wow, it got good reviews. Wow, it's really creative. It's really fun. It's really unique. And that was a great moment in the sun for them. But the problem is, Hi-Fi Rush didn't make people subscribe to Game Pass because it's more of a supplemental Game Pass experience. And this is what I was saying last week, and less of the kind of game that makes you subscribe to a service. You subscribe to Game Pass for Starfield, for Halo, for Forza. You stay subscribed to Game Pass because, oh, what's Hi-Fi Rush? Oh, what's Pentiment? Oh, what's Grounded? So the thing is, a game like Hi-Fi Rush is supplemental to a Game Pass subscriber. It's not enticing to a non-Game Pass subscriber. And that's really what they're getting at, is saying Hi-Fi Rush was a good game, and we're proud of how it made us look among our peers in the industry, among our competitors in the industry, among the people who award and acknowledge in the media and all that in the industry. We're glad that hardcore gamers liked it and that our Xbox hardcore base went to bat for us even harder because this game made us look stronger. But casual audiences didn't buy it. It didn't make money. It didn't move the needle. It didn't get Game Pass subscribers. We didn't get a good, healthy return on investment because of this game. So now we need to shut down Tango Gameworks so that upper management has more time, more attention, and more effort to be provided to teams like Treyarch, Infinity Ward, 343, Playground Games, the Coalition, etc. And what do these teams have in common? Rare. And what do these teams have in common that teams like Tango Gameworks don't have in common, or Arcane Austin? Well, these teams make multiplayer, live action, multi-year, microtransaction online experiences where they can monetize, sell in bulk, make shit tons of money. Because if you invest your time in the guys making Call of Duty, oh, you're going to make so much fucking money selling Nicki Minaj skins. If you invest your time in the Halo guys, doesn't matter how much they fuck up the next Halo game. Halo's always good for a 5 to 10 million units sold kind of experience. If you invest your resources and efforts into Forza, people love Forza. They buy it. They buy car passes. They spend hundreds of hours in it. They subscribe to Game Pass over it. If you give your time to the guys making Gears of War, if you give your time to the guys making the next Fallout or the next Elder Scrolls, these are the big budget. I'll subscribe to Game Pass for that kind of games. These are the games that are going to get people to buy microtransactions. These are the kinds of games that get people to play 100, 200 hours. And that shit all turns to money, and that's what they care about. So you have to read between the lines here, because they're saying a whole lot of nothing. But when Bond is basically saying this PR-trained, almost incomprehensible regurgitation of what Matt Booty is saying internally to his team, it becomes pretty abundantly clear that they're saying, yeah, we know Game Pass needs games, and we know that the smaller games are nice additive bonuses on Game Pass, but right now we just need to fucking make some money. We need revenue. And we're seeing things like Sea of Thieves, a 7-year-old game, make buku bucks over on the PlayStation, and we're saying, what the fuck are we doing wasting our time developing and managing all these teams, making these small little things that don't add up to anything material, when we could just focus on the cash cows? It's actually a little similar to what PlayStation's doing right now when you look at it, where PlayStation's shut down some smaller teams in recent years, and they've invested less in smaller second-party games and things like that, and they're kind of at a point now where they just put out fewer games, but it's okay because they just want cash cows. They just want their biggest teams, their biggest games, their multiplayer experiences and all that. And the thing is, for PlayStation, you can kind of get away with that because they operate in a traditional way where you buy the console, you subscribe to PS Plus, and you buy the games a la carte, $60, $70, whatever they cost as they come out. Xbox, this strategy doesn't really make sense anymore because Xbox is so dependent on Game Pass. So while in theory it's like, well, I could see why an Xbox that doesn't have Game Pass might be able to do something like this, because it's like, listen, man, games are expensive to make. The industry's harder than ever to get buy-in. We need to focus on surefire successes like Halo and Gears of War and Call of Duty, as opposed to smaller, more little intricate kind of risks like Hi-Fi Rush, which, you know, might break even or might make a small profit, but they stretch our stabs thin and make us focus on things that are kind of in the periphery, when we need to focus on the golden eggs in the middle. We need to focus on Sea of Thieves. We need to focus on Forza. We need to focus on Flight Sim or whatever the fuck they think is going to make them money. So I get it. Diablo, Overwatch, these are the games they got to care about, not Pentiment. And it's all about money. And this kind of brings me back. I don't know. We don't have to get into the Game Pass discussion because, I was just bitching and moaning about Activision, how that was such a terrible get for Xbox. I love Game Pass, and I don't regret that Game Pass exists in a lot of ways because it's been so great as a consumer of Xbox. But, oh man, so many of these problems would be fixed if Game Pass never existed, because the Xbox marketplace would just be trained to buy video games. And then maybe Hi-Fi Rush would have been a sales success because it would have been a game that they had to market and tease and have a roadmap for. And then when it came out, people would have bought it for $40 a pop and it could have made a healthy profit. But because of Game Pass, it's just the next thing that got gobbled up in a service that's not making any money for the company. So that's really what it comes down to. It's money. It's money. We need to focus on when you look at Bethesda, it's like, okay, Bethesda Game Studios, they make Fallout, they make Elder Scrolls, they make Starfield. Those are money makers. They're solid. All right, id Software, they make Doom. That's a money maker. They're solid. Machine Games, they make Wolfenstein, and now they're making fucking Indiana Jones. Okay, they're solid. Arcane Leon, they're making a Blade game, a Marvel Blade game. Okay, they're solid. That's going to make money. But then you start to get down, and it's like, all right, well, Tango Gameworks, it's like they make really beloved games critically, but they don't make money. Okay, see ya. Arcane Austin, well, that team's a husk of its former self because everyone quit working on Redfall, and they've never really had a commercial success. They've really just had critical successes. All right, fuck you. See you next time. I guess the only thing that could have fixed it at this point would have been if Tango Gameworks was working on a fucking Big Hero 6 video game, and maybe because it's kind of Japanese-esque Disney Marvel shit, and maybe Arcane Austin could have been working on I don't know who's available. They could have been working on a fucking Hawkeye and Ant-Man 1987 Avengers game or something like that, and maybe that would have saved their asses. But the truth of the matter is, this is why we're in the situation we're in, and we're about to see a similar logic applied to Xbox Game Studios. So get ready. It's about to get really ugly for not just an appendage of Xbox, but the heart of Xbox, which is the Xbox Game Studios team. So God be with the people who are about to lose their fucking jobs and be affected by this, because it's going to get ugly. So that's actually the first half of the Bloomberg thing. Now, the second big quote or story from this Bloomberg interview is actually much more compelling because it's about something exciting that's coming for Xbox consumers and not people losing their jobs or things being taken away. So Microsoft basically announces that their web-based mobile game store is coming in July, seeking to compete with Apple's App Store and Google's Google Play Store. Now, of course, this is going to bomb and fail and be an unsuccessful nightmare like pretty much everything Microsoft does, but hey, they're going to try. Speaking of that Bloomberg Tech Summit again, Sarah Bond says that the store will be accessible across all devices, countries, no matter what, independent of the politics and closed ecosystem stores, basically saying regardless of what Apple tries to block, you'll still be able to get this. The store will launch on Microsoft's own games and additional content for said games. Eventually, the store will be open to third-party publishers as well. So with everything, as is the case with everything Microsoft, you can expect this to not be supported by said third-party publishers, but only time will tell. Quote, "This web-based store is the first step in our journey to building a trusted app store with the roots in gaming," said an Xbox spokesperson to Bloomberg. Microsoft has discussed the possibility of launching such a store for some time now, largely in the wake of the acquisition of Activision, which included mobile game giant King, the team behind Candy Crush. While Activision's deal was often framed by Microsoft as seeking to acquire Call of Duty, as Microsoft seeking to acquire Call of Duty, Phil Spencer actually consistently claimed that the transaction was primarily driven by mobile gaming ambitions. In November of 2022, Spencer said that the Xbox business would become untenable if it remained irrelevant on mobile, saying that they still think mobile is going to be the big beacon of hope for them. He says, quote, "There's just no way to really plot out the future without being on a platform that most of the planet is already on," Phil Spencer said in November of last year. "The games are different, the business models are different, the whole dynamic of how you distribute, how you find games is totally different. So when I look at that, I need to find teams that have amazing success for us to learn from. So literally we just Amy Hood, who's the CFO of Microsoft, and I went through a list of who's the most accomplished publishers in the mobile space. And most people would have expected, I think, I didn't, that Activision would have been that high. With King's work, as well as Call of Duty Mobile and Warzone, they've been doing a lot. Diablo Immortal, stuff. So basically, as a recap and a reminder, and now with some more firm details, we're getting this Xbox storefront in probably 2 months. And maybe they talk about this at the game showcase next month. I don't know. I'm kind of torn on whether or not they will, but I'm very curious about using this. I'm very curious about getting involved in this. Let me put it like this. For the past couple of years, I've been pretty much exclusively on Samsung phones, and I actually really like where Samsung phones have headed the past few years, namely because Samsung, with them being the overwhelming biggest player in the Android space, they have this big dick energy that they can swing around where they can basically tell Google, like, hey, even though our phones run Android, we're going to have our own app store, we're going to have our own launcher that basically takes over the phone, we're going to have our own voice assistant to compete with Google Assistant, and we're going to do basically all these things that you don't really want a lot of your OEMs doing, but we want to do anyway to kind of have our own ecosystem, so to speak. And you can't say no, because Google and Android need Samsung just as much as Samsung needs Google and Android, for the operating system. And so I bring that up to say, I really like what Samsung has done with their phones in the past 3 to 5 years with their Android phone launcher, their Bixby voice assistant, their Galaxy app store that they have, and just everything. So, like, I've had a handful of Android phones, and, like, most of them are very Google. Like, you turn them on, and you can see, like, the Google stock Android, like, settings menus and fonts and buttons and stuff, and it's very ugly looking because Google and Android's design language is just so fucking hideous. It always has been. But one thing I really love about these Samsung phones is, like, Samsung has their own kind of overlaying color to everything. And so when you use a Samsung phone, you can put a lot of Google in it if you want to be a heathen and use Gmail and the Google Play Store and Chrome and all these things, and use the default Android Photos app and all these things. You can. But for me, for example, I try to live as much in Samsung and Microsoft's ecosystem as I can on my phone. So on my phone, I use, like, Microsoft's web browser, Microsoft's mail client. I use Samsung's app and calendars and schedule reminders. I use their file browser. I use their Photos app. I use their all their proprietary apps, including their app store. And it's really cool because it's a great way to kind of close your eyes and pretend that you don't have an ugly Android phone, but you have this really pretty Samsung phone. And I bring all that up to say, despite that being a really compelling, fun thing for someone like me, who's a quote-unquote power user in the phone space, where I follow the tech news and the tech trends, and I want to get the new devices and play with all the new apps and features and updates and stuff, the majority of people don't want to fucking do that. They want to buy the phone and use the mainstream feature. And so I use the Samsung apps. I use the Samsung App Store, and it's abysmal. It's way prettier looking than the Google Play Store, but it doesn't have nearly as many apps. It doesn't have nearly as much support. It looks prettier. It's nicer to use, but it's just not the same experience because it's not the main thing. I say all that to say very much that's going to be the case with this Microsoft App Store, but probably way worse, where it's going to be nice that I can take my Android phone and make it all Xboxified and have this Microsoft App Store and have all these Xbox things all over my phone and stuff. But very quickly, as is always the case, it's going to become this game of, like, why is Microsoft supporting the Google App Store with more games than they're supporting their own App Store? And where the hell are the third-party publishers and support? They're not anywhere to be seen. And then over the course of a few years, it's going to fall apart, and then Microsoft will just abandon it, as they always abandon all their initiatives like this. And it's just, I don't know, I can just see that writing on the wall. I can see that being the case, even though I don't want it to be the case, even though I want to see this succeed. I want to see this be a thing that's going to draw Game Pass subscribers and engagement, and maybe make Android phones and even iPhones have a little bit more Microsoft integration and Xbox integration, and make your phone just a little bit more like a Windows phone, a little bit more like an Xbox phone. I welcome and wish for all of that, but I just, knowing how these things have always played out in the past, I just find it very difficult to believe that's how this is going to play out. But nonetheless, we're in the nascent early days of this all, and I am pretty optimistic and excited, at least in the immediate future, about what it will be like to have this Microsoft App Store available on Android and iPhone devices. It will be web-based, of course, so they can get around some of Apple's closed ecosystem bullshit, but this will be very exciting nonetheless. So, cool. It's just, on top of all this, I can't help but think, sure, Phil Spencer's beating us over the head with this whole, like, oh, we need King, we need mobile support, and that's great, but you guys just shut down one of your only mobile teams. Now listen, I know Mad Dog and Doom, Mighty Doom and all this shit is not like Call of Duty mobile, Minecraft fucking levels of money making, but you need all the help you can get on mobile right now. Mobile needs lots of support, and you just shut down one of your only mobile teams. So again, do you hate Japan? Do you hate mobile? Like, why are you shutting down these unique teams that you have that you kind of fucking need? And I don't mean to be mean, but it's like if there's anyone in the Xbox portfolio that can go away and it won't have a huge impact on Xbox's long-term, goals and plans, it's like, I don't know, maybe that's like Compulsion or Ninja Theory, but certainly not a mobile developer in a time when you're trying to launch a mobile app store. Certainly not your only Japanese developer at a time where you're trying to finally make Xbox a relevant part of any conversation in that nation. It's just fucking weird, man. But I'm very excited about this app store. I'm very eager to be able to download it and play around with it. Please, I'd like the less I have to rely on Google shit on my phone, the better. So I welcome it. I just don't know that I believe in it. All right, so that's it for all that Bloomberg stuff. Now we move into Square Enix, who are also kind of going through a big change as well. Microsoft is going through shit tons of changes with their gaming initiatives. PlayStation, of course, been going through some stuff lately. Everyone's going through some stuff with layoffs, cancellations, and whatnot. And now it's time for Square Enix to start talking about some bad news, some restructuring, some changes being made. So we'll start reading this, and we'll stop if we need to in between. There's a lot here, but Square Enix has confirmed that they've canceled a number of unannounced game projects because they don't fit in with their new strategy. The publisher had previously suggested that it would be canceling projects, but wasn't specific about the details. During a meeting held late in March, the company said they expected content abandonment losses as part of their plans to overhaul their development process and improve game quality. Now, as part of the latest financial results report, it has officially been confirmed that the cancellations and explained why these cancellations were made. The new report says profits were down nearly 70% from the previous year, partly due to the recognition of a $141 million loss in disposal of content, extraordinary loss. According to the report, these losses were based on the termination of development efforts for some key pieces of content in the digital entertainment segments, essentially meaning game cancellations. The company says the projects were canceled because they don't fit with the new medium of business plan, that specifically in its approach at how high HD games are developed, or how high definition games are developed. Weird way to put it, but hey, they're Japanese. And a new strategy, which is titled Square Enix Reboots and Awakens, so Japanese, the publisher highlights a number of ways in which it plans to deliver high-quality games and make more players happy. Let's just get into what these are, because that's pretty vague. So among these changes is a medium-term business plan, which includes making AAA games multi-platform going forward. Okay, let me say that again, because that's so exciting as an Xbox gamer. These medium-term business plans, that means nothing happening immediately, but stuff that we'll start to see happen in the next couple of years, making AAA games multi-platform going forward. The plan, which the publisher has dubbed Square Enix Reboot Awakens, lays out 3 strategies for long-term growth. One of the pillars, which involves strengthening customer contact points, will see the publisher shift to a multi-platform strategy. Square Enix says it will aggressively pursue a multi-platform strategy, which includes Nintendo platforms, PlayStation platforms, PC, and, oh, what's this? Xbox. By doing this, we'll be able to build an environment where more customers can enjoy the games in regards to major franchises and AAA titles, including catalog titles. Wouldn't it be nice to play, I don't know, Final Fantasy VII Remake? While it isn't explicitly mentioned, the recent release Final Fantasy VII Remake and Rebirth are the most obvious examples of Square Enix games that were exclusive AAA titles. The new plan appears to suggest that such platform exclusivity may not be in Square Enix's interests anymore, and that it may even be planning to release some of its previous catalog titles on new formats, which means Xbox and Nintendo Switch could be getting some recently made PlayStation exclusive games. Elsewhere in the document, Square Enix stresses that it has to shift from quantity to quality. the focus on delivering games that are enjoyed by more players. It aims to launch titles to ensure excitement that will bolster players to our brand. They say, quote, placing top priority on bringing smiles to our customers' faces and to keep building on fan franchise, whatever, it doesn't matter. Basically, all this really means for us on Xbox is, hey, we're not going to be left out by Square Enix as much going forward. So as long as there is an Xbox, for whatever the fuck that matters, or however long that is, we should be able to rely on Square Enix to support us with games, which is just fucking swell. Finally, it only took till the very end of the Xbox existence for Square Enix to finally support us, but hey, here we fucking are. Let's go, baby. So that's really exciting. What's not exciting, however, is that Square Enix is also going to make a number of layoffs along with this restructuring they told during internal meetings last week or earlier this week. According to people in attendance at the meeting, Square Enix president Takashi Kiryu said that the company American and European arms would be hit with layoffs, which will happen over the course of the next month. The scale of the layoffs wasn't shared, but the staff were told that people working in publishing, IT, and Square Enix's collective indie games division will be predominantly affected by the layoffs. So, of course, as always, thoughts with all those affected. Square Enix, please be better. But yeah, with them selling off Crystal Dynamics and all these teams to Embracer, and with them rolling back on all these like new, smaller Japanese role-playing games that they've been making, all these re-releases they've been doing left and right lately, it seems like they're focused on new, high-quality AAA Final Fantasy games, Kingdom Hearts 4, whatever's next, Dragon Quest, these kinds of games, and making them available on Nintendo Switch and PlayStation and Xbox. And what's really exciting is they talk about restructuring the way they develop high-definition games. I could be looking into this a little deeper than what they meant. You got to account that room for error for Japanese translation, but it did seem like they're also looking for ways to just maybe make HD game development more streamlined and simplistic, and maybe in trying to be more multi-platform and accommodating less powerful hardware like Nintendo's consoles. Maybe what they're trying to say is we're also going to stop focusing so much on trying to make beautiful 4K 60 FPS beyond gorgeous games just for the sake of making them beyond gorgeous, because that makes games take way too long to develop, makes them way too expensive for no fucking reason, and we could just give games a unique art style, make them look good enough, and get games in a way better budget range and get them out way sooner, and really the majority of people wouldn't give a shit, and that way, hey, maybe we can curb some of this miserable game development hell that everyone in the industry is experiencing, where games just take way too long to make and cost way too much money, and we can cut costs by scaling back the projects a little bit, not focusing on making it the most beautiful thing you've ever seen. Maybe art styles to compensate for graphics in some areas. Maybe making games that are scaled with Nintendo's hardware in mind as a lowest common denominator, so that we're not trying to take advantage of every fucking ounce of power that a PS5 or an Xbox Series X has when making your latest game. And I know for some people this is frustrating to hear, and they're like, why would you want a game to be less than what the console can handle? Why wouldn't you want the most next-gen groundbreaking game? Because, bitch, that's the shit that's destroying the industry right now. I don't give a shit. I'm so over it at this point. Like I've said a million times, I still look at Xbox 360 games and go, that looks good enough for me. So, I don't know. I'm so over hyper-realistic and fruit physics and all the shit that makes games go from being 3 to 4 year development cycles to being 6 to 8 year development cycles. So let's just cut the bullshit, focus more on creative art styles, make our games less bloated with side content and bullshit and less massive to explore, and focus on getting high quality focused games out at a regular clip and within a reasonable budget, and less on there's over 7,000 hours of content to explore in the wastelands of Final Fantasy Noir or whatever the fuck they're making. I don't know what they're making. But that's just my 2 cents, and overall, pretty exciting news to see that Square Enix is finally going to acknowledge the existence of the Xbox brand just in time for the Xbox brand to fade into oblivion, and along with all the layoffs happening. So, 1 step forward, 2 steps back kind of thing, I guess. And our wrap-up story of the week, guys, just your kind of weekly, bi-weekly Game Pass update. So a couple new games were announced for Game Pass. Here's where we are for the month of May as pertains to Game Pass content. So games that have recently come to the service that are available now, as the time you're listening to this: Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons, Chants of Sennaar, EA Sports NHL 24, and Immortals of Avium. These are all available now through Game Pass, cloud, console, PC, EA Play, whatever. Really important here, I want to note Immortals of Avium because I feel so fucking bad. This is why I'm a perfect example. People aren't spending money on Xbox. This game came out last summer. I wanted to play it. Ended up in the backlog. I was just too busy at the time. I said, I'll play it later. Then I said, I'll play what's on sale. Looks like it's selling like shit, and I don't have time right now, so I'll probably just get it on fire sale. And then it went on fire sale, and then I said, I'm still too busy. I don't have time to play this game. Let me just wait a little longer. Who knows? It might even come to Game Pass. Lo and behold, it hasn't even been a full year yet. I spent $0 on Immortals of Avium, and now I have access to it because of Game Pass. This is the problem here. I'm not spending any money on my Xbox. No one's getting paid. I get to play Immortals of Avium for free. Someone had to pay for that game to be developed. Someone had to make that game. Where's the money? How does this make sense? But that's a great get for Game Pass. Apparently the game is criminally underappreciated and very good. And then coming soon, so for the rest of the month, on Game Pass, we got Rolling Hills coming on June 4th, along with Firework on June 4th. On May 30th, we got Lords of Fallen and Humanity. On May 28th, we have Moving Out 2, and on May 23rd, we have Haunty. And then on May 23rd, we have Galactic Care. It's a day one Game Pass game. But there's one game in particular I want to mention. This game comes out next Tuesday, May 21st. It is also a day one Game Pass game, and it is a little game called Senua's Saga Hellblade 2. Comes to cloud, console, and PC. Now, of course, this is the first really big Xbox release in quite some time, honestly. So this is an exciting moment, something to look forward to for the Xbox gamers out there. Possibly Ninja Theory's last fucking game before they get shut down or scaled back. Who knows? I hope that's not the case. I'm gonna be honest though, all joking aside, I really thought by now I'd be excited about this game. I just saw Microsoft or Xbox upload a 5-minute video on like catch up on the history of Hellblade before Hellblade 2 comes out or whatever. And I plan on watching that to kind of refresh myself, but I gotta be honest, man, I want to like this game and be excited for it in the way that seems like all Xbox fans are, but if I'm just being completely transparent with you guys, I'm gonna play this game mostly out of pure obligation and curiosity. But I'm not very excited for this game. I'm so much more excited to play that Skur Call of Duty Zombies knockoff game. Way more than I'm excited about this game. It's just, this game means a lot because it's the game that was revealed with the latest Xbox hardware generation. It's the game that Microsoft keeps touting as like this is going to be our indie, not indie, but like our artistic, narrative-driven, third-person action, God of War style moment. But they haven't been marketing it at all right now, and there's no talk about it, and it's coming out among the news that everything on Xbox sucks right now. So it's kind of a shitty time for this game to be coming out, and I feel bad for the developers, and I feel bad kind of for everyone because it's just not really a great time to be like, yeah, Team Xbox, use a first-party game. It's just it's kind of just a good time to shut your fucking mouth and be quiet for a while. But we'll see, man. I really don't want this game to do bad. I just don't see, I see this being, again, another game that's like, people will play it if they have Game Pass, but they will not subscribe to Game Pass for it, and it will get good reviews, and it will get decent engagement with people already subscribed to Game Pass, but it will not move the needle, it will not make money, and it will not justify its, 6-year development cycle? Like, holy hell. So, I hope I'm wrong. I hope this game's a massive fucking hit. I hope Senua's Saga somehow does to Xbox what Helldivers did to PlayStation earlier this year. I fucking doubt it, but I sincerely hope it's what does happen, because I want to see Ninja Theory get another shot and be well and find success, for their hard work. I mean, the game looks beautiful. It just, I still contend that this game just didn't need a sequel. But nonetheless, we're mere days away from it coming out, and we'll have lots to say about it very shortly. But that's going to do it for all the news, guys. Now let's wrap up with the important enough news. Stories important enough to make the podcast, but not important enough to warrant their own discussions. Of course, for the layoffs of the week, we already talked about Square Enix and their bullshit. But rattling off a couple small stories here. We already talked about it, but just to have an official write-up here. Xbox Game Studios' pirate-themed co-op multiplayer game Sea of Thieves was the best-selling game on digital storefronts for PlayStation Europe last month. According to PlayStation Blog, the game was number 1 in the top 20 most downloaded PS5 games in Europe, not counting free-to-play games. And four of the top 10 games in Europe, Sea of Thieves, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3, Grounded, and Fallout 4, are all owned by Microsoft. In the US and Canada, Sea of Thieves was the third best-selling game of the month, behind Helldivers 2 and Stellar Blade. It was joined by the top 10 by fellow Microsoft games like Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 and Grounded. So, needless to say, all Xbox games are coming to PlayStation. Don't you fucking think Halo's sacred. Next up, Fallout 4 received another patch on consoles, this time focused on graphical options. Bethesda said on Twitter that the update, which includes new options for graphics performance settings, comes with other fixes and improvements. Next up, the CEO and president of Warner Bros. Discovery has singled out Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League as the reason for the underwhelming Q1 results for its entire studio's division. The CEO said that they were mainly down to the difference between the successful release of Hogwarts Legacy last year and the disappointing release of Suicide Squad this year. So huge year-over-year change, unfortunately. And then lastly, Warner Bros. Has also announced a release date for the upcoming Mortal Kombat 2 movie. The sequel to the 2021 live-action movie, which will come out on October 24th, 2025, including an IMAX version, as reported by Variety. First one was pretty good, so I'm actually looking forward to the second one. I actually enjoyed that movie a lot more than I thought I would, so hey, I'm here for it. But that's going to do it for all of our news this week, you guys. We made it to the end of the show. I know we survived. Unfortunately, I wish we all could have made it here, but some of you guys got canceled, laid off, and shut down during the time of the podcast. And so for those who are left with me, who are still trucking on, fighting the good fight, and trying to make it through Team Xbox before they abandon us all, I say we wrap up with our favorite part of the podcast, the best part of the podcast, the only part worth a damn, the comments, the shout-outs, the questions, the scolding, the updates, the recommendations, the admissions and guilt, and all the rest. From youtube.com/Xbox On Podcast, you go to youtube.com, click on the Xbox On Podcast, not that weird British channel. You click on my podcast, and then you click on the latest episode of the podcast, and you can say anything nice, anything mean, anything in between in the comments section. You can say, Jesse, you're stupid. Your opinions about Xbox are wrong. I'm a fanboy, and you made me feel funny about myself, and so now I have to hate you because I feel diametrically opposed to someone who doesn't affirm the things I want to believe to be true. How dare you make me think differently? That's fine. I don't give a shit. You could also say, Jesse, you went on a Royal Caribbean cruise because you're a stupid idiot. I'm a Norwegian Cruise Line fan, and I think Royal Caribbean's dumb. And I would say, fuck you, I'm loyal to Royal. And then you would say, oh yeah? Explain these pictures of you on a Disney cruise not 2 years ago. And I would say, that's an older me. I don't know how you got that photo. I used to do Disney cruise a long time ago, but I gave that shit up a long time ago, and now I'm clean. Now I'm loyal to Royal, as I sip from my Royal Caribbean souvenir mug. Good shit. Get yourself one. And I don't know. We can read the comment if that's what you want to write. It's a little weird, but we could read that. Also, we just want to mention 5-star reviews on iTunes podcast services. If you do it, I'll come over to your house and clean your fucking dishes. How about that? Our first comment comes from none other than the original commenter, the original Xbox On listener, my favorite child. That's right. If I had to pick him over all you guys, I'd do it in a heartbeat. Dead Captain James writes in and says, I hate to be a doomer, but I am honestly worried about the future of Xbox. My decision to move away from Xbox consoles feels more and more wise as time goes on. I would love to be wrong because God knows Sony needs some competition to keep them in check. Yeah, amen. And you know what, Dead Captain James? I thought about you and a couple other listeners who've made it clear to me over time that they've moved away from Xbox hardware and they play Xbox through PC because they play PC gaming, or they game on PC now. And I thought about you guys out there who've made me aware of that and told me that in the past, and I thought, y'all are already there. When the death of Xbox happens shortly, you guys will have already been transitioned and passed off to the correct place because you're already settled for it. You're already ready for it. You know, you got your Game Pass, you got your Xbox library, you got your Steam library, you got your PC, you got your fucking drivers and your headsets and your mouse and your Razer keyboard and all the rest, and so you're fucking ready. Some of us will be left behind. Some of us will be caught with our pants down, laying in a fetal position on our living room floors, cuddling an Xbox Series X and taking the cable from our old Xbox 360 headset and tying its cables between our toes for a feeling of intimacy that we have long since lost, and we'll just sit there and cry and feel uncertain about the future because that's where we're at. Dead Captain James, it's been a while. Good to see you. Hope you're well. Hope the family's well. Have a great week, sir. iCronky writes in and says, I want to add to the chorus of negativity for a second. I think gaming was a massive misstep for Xbox or Microsoft to get into in the first place. They're used to enterprise-level income. Every computer everywhere runs Windows and uses Office. Massive corporations now use Azure. And with gaming, they are getting into a significantly smaller industry. I know gaming is big, but next to every computer on the planet Earth, it's minuscule. And that means that companies operating at a profit isn't good enough. Microsoft wants every part of their business to generate fuck you money, so gaming just doesn't work. I mean, Game Pass was never going to be as big as Netflix because the barrier to entry is so much greater. Instead of just sitting on the couch with my hand down my pants, I have to actively engage. So Game Pass won't grow much larger, and without that, Microsoft will never be happy with gaming. So yeah, buying Activision just put a spotlight on how gaming doesn't fit Microsoft at all. And I think, Cronky, really that is the summation of it all, because Xbox was always able to fly under the radar for the longest time. You know, they talk about quarterly reports, you know, investors didn't pay attention to Xbox, didn't ask about Xbox, didn't care about Xbox, because it was only making up roughly like 5% of the company's revenue. But now, all of a sudden, Xbox is accounting for more revenue than Windows, and suddenly investors, all these fucking dude bros with their suits and their goddamn Bitcoins, are like, how's Xbox doing in the portfolio? Am I making passive income on Xbox this month? Are numbers up? Are we trending in the direction we want to see? My Verbo stock is down right now, so I'd really like to see Xbox bolster my portfolio at this point in time. And then Phil Spencer will be like, we're putting players at the center of the goddamn universe. And Satya Nadella here is going to back me up, because even though we fucked up the last Halo game and we haven't been able to get a single goddamn game out of any of our studios we acquired in 2018 yet out to market, we feel very confident that Call of Duty is going to become Call of Duty this year. And even though we fucking replaced everyone high up at Activision with Matt Booty, so God fucking bless, you know, penis. So that's probably how those calls are going. But yeah, you're right. It's that now the spotlight is on the gaming division, and that's why all these things are happening. It's that it's too big to ignore now. And so Xbox has to be operated like an arm of Microsoft. And it can't be the little pet project. It can't be the little nerd corner. It can't be the little loss leader or the thing that they don't care about or pay attention to because it's just there. It does its thing. It trucks along. And it's a nice little venture for them to be in. And who knows? You know, it's always good to have your tendrils in multiple places, have a diverse portfolio. And I think when it comes to these tech companies, because you even see it with Apple, a company that's always, you know, modern day Apple is just, their nose is too fucking stuck up to admit that they heavily rely on gaming, but they're a company that heavily relies on gaming. They make so much money. Apple makes so much of its fucking money because video games on the App Store. And a lot of these tech companies, like, they might not always talk about it, but gaming is a huge thing that they all want to be involved in. A huge thing, a huge moneymaker they all want to be, you know, have their hands in get a piece of the pie from. And I think so much of that, so much of acknowledging the fact that it's like, we have something here with Xbox. It's a brand that's stuck, and even though it doesn't make a lot of money, it's a ubiquitous brand that everyone's familiar with and heavily associates with Microsoft. I think has been so valuable for Microsoft over the years that they want to hold on to it, knowing that Apple doesn't have something like Xbox, Google doesn't have something like Xbox, Facebook's trying to have something like Xbox with MetaQuest or Oculus Rift or whatever the fuck you want to call it, but no one really has in the tech space, you know, a hand in the games industry, you know, their finger on the pulse or whatever, as you know, as well as Microsoft does with Xbox. And I think that was always the incentive for letting Xbox truck on, letting Phil Spencer and the team do their thing, because it was about having your hands in that pie. But because of Activision, because of the massive revenue bump that Call of Duty brings, the massive uptick in operating costs that are associated with having Activision and making Call of Duty and all these things, they're now at a place where it's like, all right, pet project's over. What are we doing here? Where's the money going? How are we making money? How can we make this more efficient? How can we make numbers go up every quarter? Because now Jimmy John, who's been invested in Microsoft for 30 years, is going to suddenly give a shit about video games because they see the numbers and they want to make sure that all aspects of the business are thriving so that their stock prices stay high and they can sell their their tanking Verbo shares and go buy a fucking third yacht while, you know, diabetics die without insulin because America. I don't know what to fucking say. So, yeah, I think it's as simple as that. And I do disagree with your notion that Microsoft should have never got into gaming or that you know, whatever. I just think the problem is they let it grow too big, too fast, and unregulated. They needed to let Xbox grow and become a natural, nurtured thing. I'm telling you right now, if Microsoft didn't buy Activision. If Microsoft wasn't trying so hard with Game Pass, if Microsoft could have just kept trucking along and stuck it out with like, no, we're going to play the same game as PlayStation. We're just going to have games. You're going to buy them $70 a la carte. But they try to compete by building and nurturing internal studios and making small acquisitions, no larger than Bethesda, even though Bethesda is technically a huge acquisition. I feel like they could have played the traditional game a little longer. And I know they were losing that game so hard to PlayStation, but now they're playing a completely different game, and now they're losing really hard, really fast, but just in a different style and for different reasons. So I guess the risk may have been worth it, but it just didn't pay off. The problem is they were losing so hard playing the traditional route, and then they flipped the script and went with Game Pass and all this shit and tried to grow and grow and grow. And now that's backfiring. And I think, honestly, what I think it comes down to is they just had the wrong people running the show. I mean, it is laughable, man, that they bought all these studios in 2018. No one's put out a goddamn fucking game since then. And the people in charge of all this stuff, of running all this stuff, Phil Spencer, Matt Booty, and these guys, are getting more and more power. They're getting promotions. They're getting put in charge of Blizzard and Activision and Call of Duty and all this stuff. It's just, Xbox is so poorly managed, man. It's embarrassing. And I don't like calling for people's jobs, but at this point, I don't feel it's bad. I mean, you're taking people's jobs. You're shutting down studios. You're being so flippant with careers and livelihoods here because you guys are, there's no plan. There's no vision in place. It's just like, can we buy Activision? Oh my God, we can buy Activision? Okay, let's buy Activision. And then all the consequence that comes with that is something we're now starting to face and to feel, and it's terrible. Next up, Corny Puddle says, man, I'm not happy about any of this. I'm mainly upset about Tango. Yeah, man, you and I think everyone else, it's ass, but short and sweet. I like it. Next up, Eli Da Silva writes in, and bear with me, man. We got a long one here. We might have to skip over some of this, but let's get into it real quick. He says, what a week. What a shitstorm. Today, as of the time I'm writing this, is May 9th. 2 days before before the dreaded news of the closures of Arcane Austin and Tango Gameworks. On May 11th, Saturday, it'll have been my birthday. I'm 35 now. Good Lord. Happy birthday, man. So I hereby have gained the right to be an old man and scream at the sky. And seeing how the sky is falling for us Xbox fans and much of the gaming community, seems like it's a good time to cash in. The amount of straight up outrage and negativity and scrutiny that Xbox and Microsoft have in sight is a sight to behold. And honestly, it's well deserved. Every single line of what they've ever said about making creativity, or making creative, small, prestigious games, Game Pass, and investments and commitment to Japan, the promises to not close studios after mergers, hell, even the game preservation with all the Redfall won't even get its single-player patch, so now the server's shut down. That's it. It's all being thrown back in Xbox's face. The best one for me is the clip from Xbox documentary a few years back where Sarah Bond and Phil Spencer were talking about Lionhead Studios and how it was a mistake to close them down and now they regret it and want to do better. Seems like while they promise 4K 60 FPS with games this generation is still out, these other broken promises and straight up lies in 4K 60 FPS. The amount are looking pretty... you said the other broken promises and straight up lies in 4K 60 FPS are looking pretty pristine. Ha ha ha. These are moments that fans of Xbox and gaming need to stand together, make their voices and opinions heard, and put everyone who's in charge's foot to the fire and demand better. Make a stink and make it loud. The only way we customers and fans can make corporations change. It happened with the Xbox One. It can happen again. I've played and had Xbox since the original. I skipped the Xbox One generation, but I love my Series X, and now I don't regret buying it. There definitely will be a lot of bandwagoning, fear-mongering, doom-saying from media, YouTube, and social media for the foreseeable future. Xbox has made themselves an easy target not to, but don't give up completely on the joy of gaming, your love and passion because of all of it. Maybe I'm being the optimist, but put everyone accountable to the test and put them on blast and demand better things, and we can get better. Or everything explodes tomorrow, and then we're all playing rocks pretending that's Halo. But the only way things can change is sticking together and calling out all of this pile of horse shit. Something usually has to give, and usually does by the end. A little bit of emotion for a spicy week, but I'm an old man yelling at the sky. Thank you for the podcast, thank you for the honesty, and the best one about Xbox on the gaming, and gaming on the internet. I'm losing my brain here, man. I always look forward to it. Have a great week. Thank you, sir. I really appreciate the kind words, and happy birthday to you. Hope you had a wonderful birthday weekend. Man, I appreciate your optimism. I genuinely do. But to go back to what I said at the top of the show, I'm out of it, man. I'm out. I'm gonna stick with Xbox, man. I stuck with Zoom and Groove Music and Windows Phone and all these stupid things. You know, where like I love the brand, I love the product. I stuck with it. Right now, I'm starting to feel that way a little bit about Surface. I'm a fucking idiot. Microsoft does something cool, they let it flail and flounder, and then they let it die. And I stick around as long as I can because I love it. And I'm going to do that with Xbox. But I mean, I think you're really apt in pointing out these hypocrisies, wanting to commit to Japanese games, shutting down your only Japanese game developer, wanting to commit to mobile more and more, shutting down a mobile developer. Talking about how you regret closing down Lionhead and that was never about money and it was just about personnel and management and things like that. Then doing it all over again this week, but times 4. We lost the generation, basically throwing hardware out. All these things, putting all your games on PlayStation, everything. The problem is it's very clear that there is a vision and an idea for how to run Xbox coming from Phil and his team. And now there's a Microsoft higher up that's getting involved, and so that vision can't be fulfilled. So there's some hypocrisy there. The other thing I think is that these guys get very passionate and emboldened by their aspirations and their vision, and they talk to everyone. Everything from gaming outlets to big higher-end media to kind of funny blogcast to Little Xbox, Johnny and Jimmy's podcast extraordinaire, and they talk to fucking everyone, and they say everything. And the thing is, I don't think, you hear some people are like Phil Spencer, the snake oil salesman or whatever. I don't think Phil Spencer and the like are constantly lying deliberately to our faces any more or less than any other executive is constantly lying to our faces with their PR bullshit. I genuinely think when Phil Spencer and these guys get out here and they say the kinds of things they say and they state their intentions and they make their promises, I think these are genuinely the promises they want to keep, the intentions and the aspirations they genuinely hold and have. But the problem is they have no problem making these public declarations about their intentions and their aspirations and their goals and their commitments when they fucking know that someone's going to jump in and change things around and they don't have ultimate say and someone higher up is going to say do this, and if they try to do that it may have big consequences for this, and it's just not as cut and clear. If you ask me, Jesse, can you promise me right here, right now, so long as you're alive and in good health, that you will continue to do Xbox On for the next year and talk about Xbox in your boxers for as long as you can? I will say, yes, I'm committed to you guys that listen to this podcast, whether the audience grows, shrinks, or stays the same. I'm committed to Xbox On. It's a big part of my creative output. It's something I'm proud of doing, and I'm grateful to do it because of all you guys that listen and interact. I can make that promise, but the difference between me making you that promise and Phil Spencer saying we're committed to Japan, we're committed to smaller games, we're committed to supporting small teams and creative games and smaller games and all these things, and we're all about exclusives, and buying Bethesda was all about getting new exclusive content for Xbox. Remember that quote, that empty promise? The difference between me and my promise and Phil Spencer and his promises is that Phil Spencer's got like a million people above him saying, no, you fucking don't. Well, actually, now you do this. Well, that doesn't work. We actually have to do this instead. And he has no control. And to some extent, he's a puppet. And to some extent, he's just a really bad executive who needs to be fucking replaced at this point. Not because he sucks or because whatever. I mean, it's not easy doing what he does. But he's had way too much time and power and has gotten very little done in terms of turning the ship around this generation and managing a team that can manage development studios to get games out. And it's been a fucking nightmare. At this point, it's like, what beyond the great catalog of games we have coming out this year, it's like, what do we really think could come out next year? Fable? The next Gears won't be ready. The next Halo won't be ready. State of Decay 3, who knows what's going on with that? Everwild, who knows what's going on with that? Maybe South of Midnight? Perfect Dark, I hear, is a mess. It's like everything's in development hell over at Xbox. State of Decay 3 is in development hell. Everything's a fucking mess over there. So you got Call of Duty. Like, what else? So it's like, I don't know. These executives need to go. They always talk when they need to keep their fucking mouths shut. They could gain so much by just keeping their mouths shut. And they've had all this time with all these teams, and they have so little to show for it. They put the guy in charge of all these teams who's been floundering with these Xbox studios for years now, in charge of Activision Blizzard. What the fuck? It's laughable at this point, man. Something needs to change. Someone needs to step down. Someone needs to go. And maybe that happens soon. I don't know. Maybe they're finally at that point where Microsoft's like, what the fuck are we doing here? Because now they do have all eyes on Xbox, and I think they're going to pick up on that shit pretty quick. So I'm not wishing for anyone to lose their job, but I am wishing for Xbox to maybe potentially have a fighting chance to not go the way of the dodo in the next fucking 36 months. That'd be nice. Next up, Mike Clark writes in and says, this week's headlines feature Nintendo's announcement for a Nintendo Switch successor, delighting many fans. PlayStation initially mandated a PSN account for PC players on Helldiver 2, but withdrew the requirement following backlash, resulting in widespread relief. In contrast to those two things, Xbox, which hasn't released a new game in 8 months, shut down 4 of its studios, has seen its brand image and user satisfaction further decline. Xbox only generated revenue of $21 billion last quarter. How will they possibly survive? Love it. Xbox and its executives have been one of the most insensitive, tone-deaf companies today. They resemble the Embracer Group, yes they do, but with the significant financial resources that should have seen a dangerous combination. And I'm so thankful that it wasn't Sega or Capcom that they purchased, and I hope that going forward they have bought the last large publisher. For me personally, my Game Pass subscription expires on the 15th of the month. I'm struggling with the decision whether or not to renew it or just let it go. The idea of spending more money on Xbox kind of makes me nauseous right now. Sorry for another long-winded reply, but great show as always. Mike Clark, thank you for writing in. This is a great comment. And I think it's a really relatable conundrum right now. It's like we're watching Xbox do what Sega did in the early 2000s. Seems all but imminent. And they're so flippantly taking people down with them. You can imagine that maybe Arcane, maybe Tango would have been fine if Bethesda had stayed independent. But now Microsoft's making giant decisions for them that have horrifying consequences because of negligent decisions that they made to acquire Activision. It's fucking terrifying. It's sickening. It's unnecessary. And again, it's Xbox not being able to keep their fucking mouths shut, staying out of the spotlight. We're putting all of our games on PlayStation. We're shutting down 4 studios. Sarah Bond's going to go on Bloomberg and talk about this thing we should really just shut our mouths about right now. Phil Spencer's going to tweet about it. We're going to go on the Kind of Funny Games cast. We're going to talk to one of these fucking... What is his name? The Kind of Funny guy? The fucking dude, the Paris guy. They're like, we're going to talk to one of these fucking Xbox shills that refuse to fucking be like an honest, genuine person. And is just basically a PR mouthpiece for this brand. It's going to get propagated by Xbox executives who validate these people by following them on social media and tweeting at them and appearing on their podcasts. And we're going to fucking talk to these guys and say all the fucking things they want to hear. We're committed to Japan. We're committed to mobile. We're committed to console. Most powerful console ever made. We're going to have more first-party games. We're going to have a new AAA game every fucking quarter. Every 3 months, there's going to be a giant Game Pass release that's going to make the world stop and drop their pants over it. Every fucking 75 seconds, Bonnie Ross is going to come back to 343 and release 343 new Halo games. 343, that's one Halo game for every number of the studio, which makes no fucking sense, but I'm saying it anyway because I'm Phil Spencer and I'm here to overpromise and underdeliver. This is the problem, man. Just shut your fucking mouths. There's a lot of criticism to be levied at PlayStation right now with the fact that PlayStation hasn't like made a game in 50 years, with the fact that PlayStation's business model is basically create new hardware, re-release The Last of Us. There's a lot of criticism to be levied at PlayStation with little stupid things they do here and there. But you know what PlayStation gets right? They just shut their fucking mouths, sell their goddamn PlayStations, release games whenever the fuck they have a game to release, and take your goddamn money. PlayStation could be doing things way worse than Xbox. They might have way worse ideas and short-term goals, and they may have a way worse future and vision for PlayStation in the midterm, where maybe they also think there's not going to be anything beyond a PlayStation 6. And maybe they think that PlayStation is just going to become some streaming service. And maybe they don't suspect that they'll be able to, carry over generations of PlayStation downloads and purchases and user profiles and all this stuff into the future. Who knows? PlayStation could have catastrophic plans and ideas. But the thing is, everything looks peachy keen over on PlayStation's side of the aisle because they don't fucking talk. It's amazing. That giant Activision, not Activision, Insomniac leak happened. What was that? The end of last year or early this year? A couple months back, right? And they held the hackers were like, we will not release this information if PlayStation and Insomniac give us all this fucking money and do all this stuff. And you know what PlayStation did? They said not a goddamn thing. And then all that information leaked. And you know what PlayStation said? Not a goddamn thing. And then everyone knows everything that's happening with Insomniac for the next like 10, 15 years. And you know what PlayStation said? Not a goddamn thing. And then PlayStation shut down a couple smaller studios earlier this year. And you know what they basically said about it and did about it? Not much. And then PlayStation basically fired their fucking CEO and then replaced him with an interim CEO. And then this week just announced a dual CEO replacement for him. And you know what they really said about it, aside from just like the fucking like blog, blurb, PR release statements about all of these events? Pretty much fucking nothing. No, they didn't get on the Kinda Funny Games cast, and they didn't get on the PlayStation or Die podcast, and they didn't fucking go to Twitter and start tweet storming about their commitment to fucking video games and all that shit. They just shut their fucking mouths. And by contrast, PlayStation looks like they're the healthiest they've ever been, and Xbox looks like a joke. So Phil, Sarah, Matt, stop talking. Stop talking. Leave the stupid, endless, nonsensical talking to the idiots like me. And you guys, just shut your fucking mouths and figure out what the fuck's happening with State of Decay 3. Like, what are we doing here? It's so crazy. Microsoft is such a vastly larger company than PlayStation. And I wonder if, to some extent, what it is Microsoft is a big company, so when things happen, there's a lot more of an expectation and a precedent that their executives will speak on the matter. And PlayStation is relatively a much smaller company that flies more under the radar and is able to just kind of operate and do what they do without as much consequence as Microsoft, because let's be honest, Sony exists as an entity for entertainment. They do movies and video games and music and consumer electronic products. Microsoft exists to make the world go round with Windows and Office and all this shit. So I guess maybe the reason why Xbox talks so fucking much is because they are trained and taught to react and act and speak to things in a manner of how like the Windows team or Azure or Satya Nadella or someone would have to speak about more pressing matters. But the fact of the matter is, you run the video games division of a giant corporation that has little to do with video games. Shut up. Stop talking. Ignore Twitter. Do not get fucking swallowed up by the echo chamber of all the fucking like, I'm X-Dog fucking Twitter user Xbox God 69. Like, don't listen to the fucking tweets from the trolls and focus on operating a business, man. Just come on, man. I just can't help but notice and wonder if Xbox would be in a way better state if they did things, didn't fucking talk about things, and just let the people wonder. Who gives a shit what people like me have to say on our fucking tiny little podcast that no one gives a shit about? Who cares what the Twitter heads have to say about anything? Just make your decisions, do your actions, and then when you're ready to talk, have a fucking press conference, show some games, and blow people's minds. And then go away again until you absolutely have to talk. But I don't know. I don't know if these guys love the limelight or if they're too PR trained by a company that is much more important than what Xbox is or what the case is. But it's like, shut up, please. All right, let's talk about Hellblade for a brief second. Cronky says, so Hellblade 2 is coming out soon. General mood is very anti-Xbox, anti-Microsoft right now. What impact will that have on the game? Is it just like Halo 5 where it came out at a bad time? Does Ninja Theory have some hard times ahead of them? I don't think anyone gives a shit about Hellblade, man. No one's talking about it. Microsoft's not really advertising it. I think some fucking video game news outlets are about to give this game a 9 out of 10 for being whatever the hell the first game was, but then just more of that, and that's great. But I think Hellblade 2 is a hi-fi rush waiting to happen, man. It's going to do well critically. It's going to be great supplemental content for existing Game Pass subscribers. And it's not going to move the needle for Xbox in terms of money's made. It's not going to bring any money to the table until they inevitably bring the game to PlayStation, which I promise you will happen. I don't know when, but it'll happen. Cargo Runner. Sorry, we got a lot of comments this week. Cargo Runner, I love you and I appreciate you, but I'm going to hold your comment until next week because we are running very long and we're talking about Bethesda here. And I just, it's just a conversation about something I talked about last week with old Bethesda versus new Bethesda. So I'm going to promise to keep your comment here, but I am going to save it for next week if that's all right with you. I hope you understand. I do love you and appreciate you writing in, but we are running along, so I'm gonna read a couple small comments as we close out the show. These are the miscellaneous comments. We got 3 more. Tim R writes in and says, referring to your comment about being less of an issue if developers were just honest about why they didn't include things like 60 FPS mode at launch, that's the way I used to think too. Unfortunately, after stuff like Halo Infinite promising co-op, or similar promises were made by developers and never delivered on, I just don't trust anymore despite how true their statements may be. Well, Tim R, I think that's a little different from what I'm saying though, isn't it? Because you're referring to when 343 promised after Halo 5 that the next Halo will have co-op campaign. They promised that. I was talking about a more transparent kind of honesty where like Todd Howard or someone at Bethesda could be like, hey, we're pretty confident we can get 60 FPS running on Starfield, but in order to find out if we can do it, or in order to 100% make it happen, it's going to take this much more development, it's going to set back this many things. It's just not worth our time and effort to do that for a feature that the majority of players don't care about and don't notice and don't appreciate. So our commitment is that we're going to focus on getting the game out right now in a polished, content complete state, and then after the fact, we're going to look into 60 FPS and try to make it happen, and that's our plan. And I feel like that's the kind of comment you get. It's like, that's so honest, that's so transparent, it's so straightforward. It's like, you got to, even if you don't like the response, you got to at least respect it. But that's not what 343 did. 343 promised something and then didn't make good on that promise. Now, 343 said, we got to be honest, the reason Halo 5 didn't have couch co-op was because major technical hurdles required in order to make that happen on the Xbox One would have made us had to delay this game another 8 months to a year, and we just couldn't make that happen. We couldn't justify that financially. The game had to come out. Our promise is that we hear you guys. We know how much you care about local co-op on Halo. And for the next Halo game, we promise that we're going to try to make that happen. We're going to develop the game with that feature in mind, and we're going to try to make it happen. And that way, when instead of being like, oh, it's for sure coming, and then making the feature, and then people finding out the feature exists on the back end, and then choosing not to release it, and then canceling it, that way, at least cooler heads will at least be understanding of the situation. So I'm talking about full, honest transparency, like talking to your audience like they're adults. And I know it's kind of a silly thing to say because, people on the internet aren't really adults, but I respect and understand your point of view, Tim R. I'm just going to continue to be overly idealistic and wish for a world with true transparency and where audiences are truly understanding as well. Cronky writes in and says, to lighten the mood, I want to talk about something that will soon happen when Xbox and Microsoft inevitably acquire Disney and close down Epcot and Star Wars. The Phantom Menace came back to theaters and I saw it by myself with since my wife is a loser. I gotta say, the movie was a 10. Such a magical experience seeing it in theaters again. I missed the prequels. The rest of Star Wars can choke on it. Yeah, I noticed this is a sentiment that's really growing lately from people around our age who are now in adulthood, people in their 20s and early 30s and stuff who grew up on the prequels, who were like, fuck the sequels, they're soulless. The original movies, whatever, they've had their limelight for a billion years at this point. And now there's just this contingency of young adults who are like, fuck yeah, I grew up on the prequels. And I'll be honest, I'm kind of there with you. I acknowledge the fact that the original 3 Star Wars movies are technically the best Star Wars movies, in terms of being cinema. And I'll acknowledge that The Force Awakens is much more of a good Star Wars movie than any of the prequels, technically, if you're trying to go off the metrics of the original 3 Star Wars movies. But the second 2 Star Wars movies from Disney, I don't give a shit about. We don't have to talk about them. And then the problem with the prequels is they are so different that they might as well just not even be Star Wars, It's like when Ninja Theory made that DMC Devil May Cry reboot, and then Capcom took it back and went back to making regular Devil May Cry games. That's kind of what the prequels are. It's like this one team made Star Wars 4, 5, and 6, and then this random team of Japanese guys made Star Wars 1, 2, and 3, and then they gave it back to the original guys, and then they made episodes 7, 8, 9 or something like that. It's just they're so weird. But I'm with you, man. I think maybe it's purely nostalgic, and because these are the only Star Wars movies I really grew up watching or being aware of. But I kind of contend that Revenge of the Sith is the best Star Wars movie. I'll be completely honest. I basically loathe the original 3 Star Wars movies. And even though I liked The Last Jedi a lot when it came out, I kind of retroactively decided I hate that movie. Not because of the movie, but because I just hate everything about what that movie did to the world. I feel like that movie plus the 2016 election are like the reason why the world's broken at this point. So fuck that. The only Star Wars I like is like Episode 1, Episode 3, the Han Solo movie, and The Force Awakens. I think those might be the only 4 Star Wars things I don't hate at this point. for movies. Plenty of good Star Wars video games. All right, our final comment of the week comes from none other than the sexy ass Sam Frito, who says, Jesse, here we are. Another great podcast. Another comment from Sam Frito. Someone at Xbox is listening. You're giving this Xbox On podcast from the great territory to South Florida. From the great territory to the South Florida, land of the truth, to high park ticket prices. You're all. It's all good. You know, Booty. He can be stubborn. Bond smells fire. Spencer is sorry. I'm just going to assume I'm too stupid to understand what you're saying. Sam Frito, you're a sexy devil, and thank you for writing in. I hope you have a wonderful week, and I hope you all have a wonderful week. Thank you all for writing in. Thank you all for participating in this dumpster fire of a podcast, and I promise you, Cargo Runner, we will get back to you next week. I did not forget about you. I'm keeping your comments saved here. For all you guys, thank you for listening to the Xbox On podcast. Thank you for supporting it. Genuinely, if you can, go on iTunes or podcast services and leave a 5-star review. Help me grow this podcast so more people can hear me bitch and moan about how Phil Spencer probably doesn't deserve his job anymore. I'd greatly appreciate your support. Until next week, be good, be kind. Don't lay off your whole fucking team, especially if you're a multi-trillion-dollar company. Yeah, I'm disgusted. All right, have a great week, guys. Power your dreams.
And you'll see